She thought it was just a simple act of kindness. But the stranger watching her had a secret that would turn her entire world upside down. The morning sun spilled gently through the tall glass windows of the cafe, painting golden streaks across the polished wooden floor. It was an ordinary cafe to anyone passing by, a small, cozy place, with soft music playing in the background, the aroma of fresh coffee and baked goods filling the air. But for one particular table, it was about to become the setting of a moment that would change lives forever. At a corner table sat a man whose presence quietly demanded attention. He made no effort to seek it. His tailored suit, crisp shirt, and expensive watch were subtle hints of wealth. But there was something in his eyes that hinted at far more than money. There was a life full of responsibilities, a mind constantly calculating and planning, and a heart that had rarely found the time to simply breathe. This man, despite all the power and influence he wielded, carried a quiet burden. He worried about his only son, a boy with a gentle soul and a fragile heart. The boy sat across from him, small and delicate, with soft, expressive eyes that seemed to hold a universe of feelings. He had always been different from other children, sometimes painfully sensitive, sometimes delightfully curious, and often overwhelmed by the world around him. Loud noises, sudden movements, or even unfamiliar faces could make him anxious, and he sometimes struggled to express himself the way other children could. For his father, every outing was a careful balance of protection and freedom. It's a chance to let his son experience the world without letting it hurt him. Today, the father had decided it was time for a rare outing, something simple, yet special. He had chosen the cafe deliberately. It was not luxurious, nor crowded, nor flash, exactly the kind of place where his son could sit comfortably without being stared at. As they entered, the boy's eyes widened in curiosity. He loved small details, the way sunlight filtered through the windows, the patterns on the floor, the soft hum of conversation. But today he seemed tense, fidgeting slightly in his seat, gripping the edge of the table as if holding on to some invisible anchor. The waitress moved through the cafe with practiced ease. She was young, perhaps in her early 20s, but there was a quiet strength in her posture. Her uniform was simple, her hair tied back neatly, but her eyes carried a warmth that seemed to notice everything and everyone. She had learned early in life that kindness could be as powerful as hard work. Every day, she balanced long shifts with caring for her younger siblings at home, stretching every dollar to make ends meet. She had dreams, yes, but dreams had to wait while reality demanded her attention. Yet she never let the weight of her responsibilities dim the smile she offered to customers. Even when exhaustion pulled at her every muscle, it didn't take long for the boy to feel the stirrings of anxiety. A sudden clatter from the kitchen, dropped plate made him flinch, his tiny hands gripping the edge of the table. His father, noticing immediately, reached out instinctively, placing a steady hand on his son's shoulder. He whispered reassuring words, but he knew it might not be enough. The boy's feelings often came out in ways words could not contain. And today, the emotions were swelling too quickly. Tears began to form in the boy's eyes, and he tried to blink them away, but they fell anyway. He looked down, ashamed and frustrated, unsure why the tears had come. His father felt a pang in his chest, a mix of guilt and helplessness. He had everything in the world, yet in this moment, he felt powerless. He had tried to shield his son from everything that could hurt him, but some things, he realized, could not be protected against entirely. The world was unpredictable, messy. Sometimes even his wealth could not smooth its rough edges. It was then that the waitress noticed him. She had been carrying a tray of drinks and paused mid-step when she saw the small boy. Shoulders trembling, eyes brimming with tears. Something inside her stirred a deep instinctive urge to comfort. She knelt down slightly, keeping her movements calm and unthreatening. "Hey, it's okay," she said softly, her voice gentle but firm. "You want me to help?" The boy looked up at her, uncertain at first, as if unsure whether it was safe to trust someone so unfamiliar. But there was no hurry in her gestures. No expectation, only patience. She didn't force conversation or demand a response. She simply offered her presence, her understanding, and the boy responded. Slowly, his shoulders relaxed, and the tears that had threatened to spill over began to subside. The father watched quietly, hidden behind his hand for a moment, observing this simple act with a mixture of awe and disbelief. He had seen teachers, therapists, and doctors work with his son countless times, but there was something different here. This wasn't professional duty. It was genuine, heartfelt empathy. The way she knelt, the way she looked into his eyes without judgment, the way she spoke softly and with sincerity, it reached a place in his son that no money or authority ever could. For the boy, the waitress became a lifeline in that moment, a steady presence in the sea of confusion he sometimes felt. He allowed her to wipe the remaining tears from his face, and a small, tentative smile appeared. His father's heart swelled not with pride in his own achievements, but with gratitude that someone in the world had the patience, the kindness, and the humanity to reach his son where he sometimes could not. The waitress straightened, offering a warm smile to both of them. But she didn't linger in judgment or expectation. She moved on to clear another table, but the impact of her action lingered. The boy watched her go, feeling lighter somehow, comforted by her attention. The father, meanwhile, sat back and reflected. He had built a life where almost everything could be bought: luxury cars, grand houses, private schools, but here, in a modest cafe, he realized that the things that mattered most could not be purchased. Compassion, empathy, genuine care were gifts that money could not replicate. As they finished their drinks, the father's mind continued to churn. He couldn't stop thinking about the waitress, her effortless kindness, and the way she had connected with his son. He wondered about her life, what struggles she faced, what dreams she held, and how someone like her could carry such warmth despite the burden she must bear. He realized that he wanted to know more, not out of curiosity alone, but because he recognized something rare in her heart that had not been hardened by hardship, a generosity of spirit that could not be taught. The boy, sensing the shift in his father's mood, squeezed his hand, a silent thank you for being there. The father smiled, eyes glistening slightly, and felt a sense of hope he hadn't felt in a long time. Maybe this day, this small outing, was meant to teach him something, as much as it comforted his son. Life had a way of placing people in each other's paths for reasons that were sometimes invisible at first. And today, in a quiet cafe corner, the first spark of an extraordinary story had been light, one that would change not just the boy and his father, but someone else entirely. By the time they left, the father had made a quiet, unspoken decision. He wanted to ensure that the warmth and kindness he had witnessed were rewarded in some way, that the waitress who had shown such empathy would somehow see the world open up for her. He didn't know how yet, but he knew that life had a way of connecting people when they least expected it. Sometimes it was the smallest acts that created the largest ripples. And he was about to learn that lesson firsthand. As they stepped outside, sunlight touched their faces, but the father felt a different kind of illumination, an awakening to the power of human goodness and a curiosity about the young woman who had, in just a few quiet moments, demonstrated a kindness so profound that it touched the heart of a billionaire and brought tears of relief to his beloved son. And so, the ordinary day in an ordinary cafe quietly set the stage for an extraordinary journey, one that none of them could have predicted. This is part 1, expanded and simple. Engaging English and captures emotional depth, character development, and real-life authenticity. The cafe settled back into its usual rhythm, the quiet murmur of conversation and clinking of cups returning to normal. For the young boy and his father, the small corner of the world they had occupied just moments ago had been transformed by something extraordinary, a simple act of kindness. The boy, still a little shaky, but now calmer, tugged gently at his father's sleeve. His father looked down at him, a soft smile playing at the corners of his lips, and felt that familiar, heavy tug at his heart, the mixture of love, concern, and awe that had accompanied every moment of parenthood. The waitress moved gracefully between tables, carrying drinks and orders, yet she occasionally glanced back at the boy and his father. There was no self-consciousness in her gaze, no desire for recognition. She simply wanted to ensure that he was okay, that her small gesture had done some good. It was natural for her to care this way. Empathy had always been a part of her, woven into her actions like a silent promise to the world that kindness mattered, even when no one noticed. The boy watched her from across the table, eyes wide with wonder. Something about her had made him feel safe. A rare sensation for a child who often felt the unpredictability of the world pressing down on him. He reached out with a tiny hand, as if trying to hold on to the calm she had brought, but she had already moved on, attending to another customer. Yet the impact lingered. Even as she disappeared from his line of sight, the warmth remained, like a soft blanket wrapped around his fragile heart. His father observed quietly, leaning back in his chair. He had seen many people in his life, business associates, colleagues, advisors, people who had their polished smiles and carefully measured words. But rarely had he seen someone whose kindness was effortless, calculated, and so purely directed at the well-being of another. He had always assumed that wealth, influence, and power were the keys to changing the world. Yet here was proof that the smallest gestures could reach farther than any bank account or status ever could. He remembered how the boy had flinched at the noise earlier, how he had tensed at the thought of being in a public place. And now, with the waitress's simple act, his son had smiled. Not a forced or polite smile, but a real, genuine one, the kind that lit up the eyes and warmed the heart. And it struck the father profoundly. He realized that there were people in the world who could touch lives in ways he never could. No matter how much money he spent, no matter how powerful he became. And he found himself wanting to know more about this young woman who had so effortlessly soothed his son's pain. He decided to approach her, a quiet determination in his steps. When he reached her table, she was arranging plates for a family. Sitting nearby, her movements careful and precise, yet there was a softness in her expression that drew him in. He cleared his throat lightly, not wanting to startle her. "Excuse me," he said, his voice steady but warm. "May I have a moment?" She looked up, a little surprised but polite, nodding. "Of course," she replied. Her voice was calm, inviting, and it carried the gentle authority of someone who is used to managing the needs of others without fuss. He introduced himself simply, not with his usual formalities, not with the titles or wealth that would normally command attention. He wanted this moment to be genuine, untainted by his usual world of luxury and influence. "I couldn't help but notice how you helped my son earlier," he said, glancing toward the boy, who now watched the exchange with shy curiosity. "You were very kind. More than anyone could expect in a place like this." The waitress blinked, a little taken aback. She had always done her best to help people, but she had never considered her actions remarkable. I just wanted him to feel okay," she said softly, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "He seemed upset, and I didn't want him to feel alone?" The father nodded, impressed not just by her words but by the sincerity in her eyes. He could see that this was not a performance, not an act designed to impress, but a reflection of who she truly was. There was something rare here, something that could not be taught or bought. Genuine empathy. Curiosity stirred within him, mingled with admiration. He wanted to understand her life, her struggles, her dreams. I asked gently, "Do you enjoy working here?" She hesitated, as if unsure how much to reveal to a stranger, but there was a truth in her voice when she spoke. I do. I like helping people. It makes me feel like I'm doing something right, but it's hard. Long hours, not enough pay sometimes, and my family. They depend on me." He listened intently, absorbing every word. He could see her world through her eyes for the first time, the exhaustion, the sacrifices, the quiet determination to keep moving forward despite the obstacles. He felt a growing respect, not for the struggles themselves, but for the strength and heart she showed in facing them. And as he listened, he realized something important. This young woman, this waitress in a small cafe, possessed a quality that could never be bought, never replicated, and rarely recognized in the world he inhabited. Meanwhile, his son observed, quietly sensing the connection forming between his father and the waitress. There was no fear here, no tension, only a calm curiosity that reflected the trust he had felt earlier. It was as if he understood, in his own way, that this woman had become a bridge between his small, vulnerable world and the wider, more complicated world outside. and for that he felt a flicker of gratitude that he could not yet express in words. Father asked more questions, not in a formal interview style, but in a natural conversation that drew the waitress out. He asked about her life, her family, her dreams, and even the little things she enjoyed when she could find time for herself. She spoke hesitantly at first, then more freely, revealing her hopes for education, her wish to travel, and her quiet desire to create something meaningful for herself and her family. She spoke of challenges she faced, of moments of frustration and fatigue, but also of the small joys that kept her going: smiles from customers, compliments from friends, the satisfaction of helping someone feel better. With each word, the father felt a deepening admiration. Here was someone who had built a life of resilience and compassion, who had faced hardship without letting bitterness take root, and who had touched the heart of his son with a single act of care. He realized that people like her were rare, people who could change lives with the simplest gestures, without expecting recognition or reward. As the conversation continued, he found himself sharing more about his own son, not in the usual guarded way, but openly, as a father who wanted to connect and understand. He spoke of the boy's sensitivities, his struggles, and the small victories that made life with him both challenging and beautiful. He didn't boast about wealth or influence. Instead, he revealed the vulnerabilities that he normally kept, hidden behind polished appearances. And in response, the waitress listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions and offering insights that reflected her innate empathy and understanding. Time passed unnoticed. The cafe continued its rhythm, the background chatter and the aroma of coffee weaving around their conversation. For a moment, it felt as though the world had narrowed to this small, quiet space, where three lives: father, son, and waitress intersected. In a meaningful and transformative way, the father realized that this connection was rare, that these fleeting moments of genuine human interaction were more valuable than any deal or acquisition he had ever made. Eventually, the conversation came to a natural pause. The father thanked the waitress sincerely, expressing how much her kindness had meant to both him and his son. She smiled modestly, deflecting the praise with a quiet humility that only deepened his admiration. The boy, now calmer and smiling, softly reached out to wave at her before returning to his father's side as they left the cafe. The father's mind was alive with reflection. He could not stop thinking about the waitress, about her life and her character, about how a single act of compassion had resonated so profoundly. He felt a stirring within him, a desire to do more, to ensure that someone so deserving could have opportunities that matched the depth of her heart. He did not yet know how, but he felt certain that life had presented him with a chance to make a real difference. For the boy, the morning had been a lesson in trust and comfort, a rare experience of feeling safe and understood in the world beyond home. For the father, it had been a reminder that wealth and power, while useful, could never replace genuine human connection. And for the waitress, though she had not realized the significance of her actions, she had planted seeds of hope and possibilities, seeds that were already beginning to grow in ways she could not yet imagine. And so, what had begun as a quiet morning in an ordinary cafe became the first step in a journey that would transform lives. A small act of kindness had bridged worlds, connecting the vulnerable, the powerful, the compassionate in a way that neither time nor circumstance could undo. The ripple had begun, and soon it would reach far beyond the walls of that cafe, changing the course of lives forever. The morning sun streamed gently through the large windows of the cafe, casting warm golden light across the polished tables and wooden floors. The world outside moved at its usual pace, but inside, there was a quiet anticipation, an invisible energy that hummed between people, unnoticed by most. The waitress, who had always gone about her work with diligence and care, felt it too. Something had shifted, a subtle awareness that her small act of kindness had resonated beyond her imagination. She didn't know exactly how, but a tiny spark of possibility had ignited within her, feeling she had almost forgotten amidst the routine of her life. That evening, after her shift ended, she walked slowly home through the narrow streets, the air crisp with the fading warmth of the day. Her thoughts wandered back to the father and the boy, to the way he had spoken to her with such sincerity and quiet admiration. She replayed their conversation in her mind, noticing small details she had not realized before, the way he had listened. Truly listened, as though every word she said held immense value. She felt a mixture of pride, surprise, and an unfamiliar hope rising within her. Could her life really be changing in ways she had never imagined? Meanwhile, the father returned to his mansion, a vast, opulent space filled with every luxury one could imagine. Yet in that grand home, he felt a strange emptiness, a void that no material possession could fill. Sitting in his study, he thought about the waitress. Her humility, her strength, and the way she had touched his son's life with something that no wealth could replicate. He realized that his life, despite its comforts, lacked a certain kind of richness, the richness of connection, of genuine human kindness, of seeing someone rise because you had helped open a door. He found himself determined to do something meaningful, to create an opportunity that could alter the course of her life forever. The next morning, the cafe was buzzing with the usual activity orders being called out, its coffee machines hissing, and the faint aroma of fresh pastries filling the air. The waitress moved among the tables, attentive, smiling, yet her mind was elsewhere, pondering the possibilities that had begun to form in her thoughts. She was not yet aware of the extent to which her life was about to change, but a feeling of anticipation hovered in her chest, light and fluttering at the same time. The father made his way to the cafe, dressed casually, wanting to meet her again in a setting that felt natural, unpretentious. He approached her as she was serving. A table of elderly customers, her movements careful, her demeanor warm and inviting. He waited patiently until she was free, then spoke with a quiet urgency that reflected the importance of the moment. He asked, and she nodded, wiping her hands on a napkin. They found a quiet corner removed from the noise and bustle, and he began to explain why he had returned. "I have been thinking about you and your son," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "What you did was more than an act of kindness. It was something rare. I want to help you. I want to give you an opportunity that could change your life." The waitress blinked, stunned. She had expected thanks, maybe even a small reward, but nothing like this. I don't understand," she stammered. "I'm just a waitress. I don't know why anyone would want to help me." He smiled softly, shaking his head. "It's not about who you are on paper. It's about who you are in the world. You have a gift, a heart that can touch lives in ways most people cannot. I want to give you a chance to use that gift to achieve something more, something bigger than this cafe. But only if you want it." Her mind raced. She had never imagined that her simple act of care could be seen as valuable in a world far beyond the small streets she called home. The idea of opportunity, of change, was both exhilarating and terrifying. She thought of her family, of the struggles she had endured to keep things together, of dreams she had quietly harbored but never pursued. Could this really be happening? Could her life actually transform from routine and struggle to possibility and growth? The father reached out, gently placing a hand over hers. "I believe in you," he said simply. "I've seen how you treat people, how you care without expecting anything in return. That's the kind of person the world needs, and I want to help you become the person you've always wanted to be." For the first time in her life, she felt a sense of validation, a recognition that went beyond mere words or fleeting praise. It was as if someone had opened a window, letting light flood into a room she had long kept dark. Tears threatened to fall, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming weight of hope and gratitude. She nodded, barely able to speak, and finally whispered, I want to try. I want to do whatever it takes." The father's eyes softened, and he smiled. He knew that this moment, this simple agreement, was the beginning of something extraordinary. It was not just about wealth or opportunity. It was about transformation, about seeing someone rise because they were given a chance to shine. He felt a deep satisfaction, a sense of purpose that he had not realized he had been missing in his life. And he knew that helping her would not just change her world, but also enrich his own. In the weeks that followed, he arranged for her to attend a series of workshops, meetings, and mentorship sessions designed to expand her skills and open doors she had never imagined. At first, she felt out of place, intimidated by the unfamiliar surroundings, the polished professionals, and the complexity of the world she was now entering. But she persisted, driven by determination, curiosity, and the memory of the boy's smile, the reminder of why she had acted with kindness in the first place, every step of the way. The father supported her quietly, assuring that she had the guidance she needed while also giving her the space to grow independently. He introduced her to people who shared his vision of compassion and social impact, mentors who encouraged her to see beyond her limitations and to dream bigger than she ever had. Slowly, the waitress began to transform. Her confidence grew, her skills sharpened, and her understanding of the world expanded in ways she had never thought possible. The young boy,
meanwhile,
continued to flourish as well. Seeing his father's admiration for the waitress, he learned an important lesson about empathy, kindness, and the impact of small gestures. He began to understand that the world was not just about what one could take, but also about what one could give. His relationship with his father deepened, rooted not just in familial love, but also in shared experiences of witnessing genuine compassion and transformation. Months passed. The waitress's life began to change in tangible ways. Opportunities came her way, projects that allowed her to help others, positions that leveraged her natural empathy and understanding. It's a growing network of people who respected her for her character rather than her past circumstances. She had never imagined that life could offer so much, yet here it was, unfolding before her. Each moment, a testament to the power of kindness and the possibilities that arise when someone believes in you. Through it all, the father remained a quiet presence, guiding without overshadowing, supporting without imposing. He had learned something crucial himself, that true influence did not come from wealth or authority alone, but from the ability to recognize potential, nurture it, and allow it to flourish. By helping her, he had not only changed her life, but also discovered a deeper purpose, one that went far beyond the confines of his own success. The waitress, now more confident and aware of her own potential, often thought back to that first moment in the cafe, to the simple act of wiping a child's tears. She realized that it was not just a memory of kindness, but the spark that had ignited an entire chain of events leading to her transformation. She had always believed in helping others, but now she understood that the universe has a way of returning those efforts in ways far beyond imagination. As she reflected on her journey, she felt immense gratitude for the father who had seen her worth, for her son who had trusted her, and for the countless small moments that had led to this remarkable turning point. Her life had changed not because of luck or chance alone, but because of courage, empathy, and the willingness to embrace opportunity when it appeared. She had become a living example of how one person's kindness could ripple outward, touching lives and creating possibilities that no one could have predicted. And through all of this, the father watched quietly, proud not just of the transformation he had helped facilitate, but of the woman she had become, the embodiment of resilience, compassion, and strength. He knew that his son, too, was learning invaluable lessons from watching her journey unfold. Together, they had created a story of hope, of courage, and of the transformative power of empathy. By the time the waitress fully stepped into her new life, she was no longer just the kind young woman who had served coffee in a small cafe. She had become a symbol of possibility, proof that even the simplest acts of human connection can ripple outward, changing the course of lives in ways unimaginable. And for the father and son, the experience had deepened their understanding of the world, teaching them that true wealth is measured not in money, but in the ability to uplift, support, and transform lives through acts of genuine kindness. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. Yet the transformation in the waitress's life continued to grow, almost like a tree gradually reaching toward the sky. Every morning, she woke with a renewed sense of purpose, the memory of that first encounter with the billionaire father and his son serving as a constant reminder of how life could change in an instant when kindness met opportunity. She no longer felt confined to the narrow streets and familiar routines that had once defined her existence. Instead, she felt a world of possibilities stretching out before her, waiting to be explored. Her mornings began early, often before the sun had fully risen. She would rise with determination, reviewing plans and schedules for her new engagements, workshops, and meetings. She had been introduced to a variety of mentors experts in business, education, social work, and communicational, of whom offered guidance and insight. At first, the meetings had been overwhelming. She would enter grand office buildings or sleek conference rooms, feeling out of place among people who spoke a language she was only beginning to understand. She struggled to grasp complex ideas, jargon she had never encountered, and procedures she had never had the chance to learn. But each day, she pushed herself a little further, learning to ask questions, to absorb knowledge, to see the bigger picture. The father watched quietly from a distance during these weeks. He did not intervene unless necessary, believing firmly that true growth came from facing challenges and learning to navigate them. He remembered the first time he had seen her in the cafe, how she had cared for his son without hesitation or expectation. That same determination, he realized, was now fueling her own ambition. He admired her resilience, noting how she transformed obstacles into lessons, and how every setback became a stepping stone rather than a wall. It was this inner strength that convinced him that she could handle far more than anyone might have expected. Meanwhile, the young boy was thriving as well. He had always been naturally curious and bright, but witnessing the changes in his mother had opened his eyes to a new kind of world. He asked questions about her workshops, her mentors, and the meetings she attended. He wanted to understand the lessons she was learning, often applying them in his own life. The bond between mother and son deepened, founded not just on love, but also on mutual respect and admiration. He began to see his mother not only as a caregiver, but as a model of perseverance, courage, and growth. In the weeks that followed, the waitress was introduced to opportunities that challenged her in ways she had never imagined. She was invited to participate in charitable initiatives, leadership programs, and entrepreneurial projects designed to help people from disadvantaged backgrounds. Each project required her to step outside her comfort zone, to speak in public, to manage teams, to make decisions that affected others, and to solve problems creatively. At first, she felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. She questioned whether she was ready, whether she had the skills to succeed in this unfamiliar world. But each time, she reminded herself of the moment in the cafe when she had simply cared for a child in need. That act had sparked a transformation, and now, she realized, it was her turn to rise fully into the person she had the potential to become. The father continued to mentor her subtly, offering advice when needed, yet allowing her to make her own choices and mistakes. He introduced her to people who could help expand her horizons: business leaders, educators, philanthropists, all of whom were impressed by her humility, insight, and determination. Slowly, she began to develop a network of allies, people who respected her not for who she was before, but for the growth and resilience she displayed now. These relationships were invaluable, opening doors she had never even known existed, providing her with tools, knowledge, and experiences that were shaping her into a confident, capable individual. As her confidence grew, she started to envision bigger goals for herself. She thought of the small cafe where her life had once felt limited, and she realized that her journey had only just begun. She dreamed of initiatives that could benefit people in need, programs that could empower others, like her, to rise beyond circumstances, and ventures that could make a meaningful difference in society. With every plan she formulated, she felt more in control of her destiny, more certain that her life was now defined not by limitations, but by possibilities. Despite all this growth, she remained deeply connected to her roots. She never forgot the challenges of her past, the financial struggles, the long hours at the cafe, the constant worry for her son's well-being. Those experiences had shaped her resilience and empathy, qualities that now served as her greatest strengths. She often reflected on how far she had come, amazed at the journey from wiping the tears of a child to participating in programs that could change lives on a larger scale. It was a humbling realization, one that reminded her to remain grounded. No matter how far her life progressed, the young boy, too, learned valuable lessons about gratitude and humility. Watching his mother navigate new challenges, engage with mentors, and build relationships based on trust and mutual respect, he began to understand the value of effort, empathy, and patience. He also saw that success was not just about achieving personal goals, but about using one's skills and influence to help others. The lessons from this journey would stay with him forever, shaping the way he approached his own life, relationships, and future ambitions. As months passed, the waitress's presence began to make a significant impact in the projects she joined. She had a natural ability to connect with people, to inspire them, and to see solutions where others saw obstacles. Mentors noticed her growing influence and often sought her input on critical decisions. She became a symbol of perseverance and transformation, a living example of how opportunity, when combined with determination and heart, could alter the course of a life. The father watched these developments with a mixture of pride and quiet satisfaction. He had never expected that one act of kindness, one simple gesture in a small cafe, could lead to such profound change. He understood now that true impact is often invisible at first, emerging slowly, quietly, like seeds germinating beneath the soil before they bloom into something extraordinary. His admiration for the waitress grew daily, not just because of her achievements, but because of the way she remained true to her values, using her growth to lift others along the way, through it all. The connection between the mother and son strengthened in ways that words could barely capture. They spent evenings discussing her experiences, her learnings, and her new responsibilities. The boy's questions became sharper, his observations more insightful. As he tried to understand the world through his mother's expanding perspective, these discussions nurtured his intellect, emotional intelligence, and empathy. Reinforcing the lessons she had learned from her own journey, the waitress's transformation also had ripple effects in her community. People who had known her in her old life were inspired by her courage and dedication. They saw that someone from humble beginnings could rise and make a difference, which ignited hope and ambition in others. She became a mentor in her own right, helping individuals who faced similar challenges, offering guidance, encouragement, and a tangible example that change was possible. Her life was now a testament to the power of perseverance, kindness, and the importance of seizing opportunities when they appear. Amid all this, there were moments of doubt and struggle. The demands of her new responsibilities sometimes felt overwhelming, and she often questioned whether she could maintain the pace. But each time, she reminded herself of her journey, the reason she started, and the boy's trust in her.
IVs.
Reminders renewed her determination, pushing her to continue moving forward, even when the path seemed daunting. By the end of this transformative period, the waitress had become a figure of inspiration, not just to those around her, but to anyone who heard her story. She had risen from humble beginnings, navigated a world that initially seemed inaccessible, and used every opportunity to grow, learn, and contribute. Her life had changed in ways she had never imagined, yet she remained humble, grounded, and deeply grateful for the guidance and support that had brought her this far. The father, observing her now, realized that the transformation had affected him too. He had learned invaluable lessons about compassion, mentorship, and the ripple effects of human kindness. He had discovered that true wealth lies not in possessions, but in the ability to recognize potential, nurture it, and allow it to flourish. The journey had enriched his life in ways he could never have measured, giving him a renewed sense of purpose, connection, and fulfillment. Together, the mother, son, and father had created a unique story of hope, resilience, and transformation. One small act of kindness, a mother wiping her child's tears, had set off a chain of events that changed multiple lives. It was a story that demonstrated the profound impact of empathy, the importance of opportunity, and the limitless potential of human courage The waitress had not only transformed her own life, but it also touched the lives of those around her, leaving a lasting legacy of inspiration and possibility. And so, as the months rolled into a year, the waitress continued her journey. Driven by purpose, fueled by determination, and guided by the lessons she had learned. She had moved from a life defined by routine and struggle to a life filled with opportunity, connection, and impact. Every challenge she faced became a stepping stone. Every success, a testament to perseverance. And every interaction, an opportunity to uplift others. She had become a living example of how kindness, courage, and the willingness to embrace change can transform not only one life, but countless others. The day had finally come when everything seemed to converge, the moment when all the seeds, sown through months of perseverance, courage, and kindness, would bear fruit. The waitress, now no longer just a young woman striving to survive, had evolved into a figure of inspiration, capable of touching lives far beyond her own. She had grown into her confidence, her voice carried weight, and her actions had meaning. Yet, despite all the changes, she remained humble. Remembering the long nights at the cafe, the struggles of raising her son alone, and the singular moment when she had wiped away a stranger's tears, that memory had been the spark. Now the fire was roaring brightly. She woke that morning with a strange mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation. The father had arranged a gathering, a celebration, but also a recognition of the journey she had undertaken. People who had guided her, supported her, and believed in her potential would be there. Mentors, philanthropists, community leaders, and even individuals she had helped along the way were expected to attend. But for her, it was not about applause or recognition. It was about closure and affirmation, a chance to see just how far a single act of empathy could ripple through life. Her son watched her carefully, sensing both her excitement and her anxiousness. He had grown remarkably over the past months, not just in maturity, but in emotional depth. He now understood, in his own way, the power of compassion, perseverance, and opportunity. Seeing his mother, once confined by circumstance and responsibility, now poised and respected, filled him with pride. He knew the journey had been far from easy, and he had witnessed every late night, every tear, every moment of doubt and triumph. As she arrived at the event, she was met with warmth and admiration. People greeted her with smiles, stories, and gratitude. Some spoke of how her work had inspired them. Others shared how her actions had impacted their lives directly. From mentoring children in need to creating programs that offered hope to the hopeless, it was a humbling experience. Yet she absorbed it with grace, quietly acknowledging each story and each smile with a nod or a gentle word. The magnitude of her transformation began to truly sink in. The father watched from a distance, proud but understated. He remembered the first time he had seen her in the cafe, the way she had cared for his son without hesitation, and the simplicity of that gesture that had sparked this entire journey. What he saw now was extraordinary, not just because of her accomplishments, but because of the way she had carried herself, the impact she had created, and the integrity with which she had done it. He realized that wealth and opportunity were meaningful only when used to nurture potential and inspire growth. She had embodied that truth in the most authentic way possible. During the event, she was invited to speak. At first, her heart raced. Public speaking had always been intimidating, but she had learned to face challenges directly. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, her son standing beside her, and began to speak. She recounted her journey in simple words, never embellishing or exaggerating, only sharing the truth of her experiences. She spoke of struggle and hardship, of doubt and fear, but also of resilience, opportunity, and the transformative power of kindness. The audience listened in rapt attention, some with tears in their eyes, others nodding in recognition of the universal truths she spoke. She highlighted the pivotal moment, the day she had wiped the young boy's tears. She described it not as a heroic act, but as a human one, an instinctive gesture of empathy. That single moment had connected her life to the father and son in a way that neither she nor anyone else could have foreseen. She spoke about how that encounter had opened doors, provided opportunities, and challenged her to grow. More importantly, she emphasized that the lesson of that day extended beyond herself. Every small act of kindness could ripple outward, touching lives in ways that were impossible to predict as she continued. She shared the lessons she had learned over the past months, the importance of perseverance in the face of challenges,
Nice.
the value of humility even when success is achieved, and the responsibility that comes with opportunity. She acknowledged her mentors, the father, and those who had believed in her potential when the world had overlooked her. Her words were simple, but they carried an authenticity that resonated deeply with everyone present. People were moved not just by her story, but by the way she had transformed struggle into purpose. After her speech, the father approached her. For a moment, neither spoke. They simply looked at each other, both understanding the profound journey that had brought them to this point. Then he spoke, his voice calm but filled with warmth. He praised her courage, her perseverance, and the way she had used every opportunity to grow and uplift others. He acknowledged that while he had offered guidance, it was her determination, empathy, and resilience that had created this extraordinary transformation. The bond between them was no longer just one of gratitude. It evolved into mutual respect, trust, and admiration. The son, standing beside them, smiled broadly. He had learned more about life in the past year than many people learned in decades. He now saw that love, compassion, and opportunity were intertwined, and that resilience and courage could overcome even the most difficult circumstances. He looked at his mother with pride and wonder, realizing that she had not only changed her life, but had also created a legacy that would continue to inspire others long into the future. As the event continued, people approached her with stories, questions, and offers of collaboration. She was invited to participate in larger initiatives, to mentor others, and to create programs that could extend the impact she had already achieved. Each invitation reinforced the truth she had always known. The world was full of opportunities, but it was courage, perseverance, and heart that allowed a person to seize them. She began to see the full scope of what she could achieve, feeling a sense of purpose that went beyond personal success. Even as recognition and opportunity grew, she remained deeply connected to her roots. She returned to the cafe where her journey had begun, not out of nostalgia alone, but to acknowledge the place that had shaped her values and character. She spoke to the staff, shared her experiences, and encouraged others to believe in the possibility of transformation. She offered guidance and support to young people who were struggling, showing them through her story that even the smallest acts of kindness could lead to profound changes. Her presence became a source of hope, inspiration, and practical guidance for those seeking a better life. Through her journey, the relationship between the mother and son reached new heights. Their bond, already strong, was now fortified by shared experiences of growth, resilience, and achievement. They learned from each other continuously, the mother guiding the son with wisdom gained from struggle and opportunity, and the son reminding the mother of joy, innocence, and the importance of empathy in every interaction. Together, they became a team, a force of compassion and purpose, capable of creating meaningful change in their community and beyond. The story of their transformation quickly began to attract attention beyond their immediate circles. Media outlets, philanthropists, and community leaders highlighted their journey as an extraordinary example of human potential, empathy, and perseverance. People everywhere were inspired by the simplicity of the initial act, the wiping of a child's tears, and how it had cascaded into a journey of empowerment, opportunity, and impact. The waitress had become more than a symbol of personal growth. She was now a symbol of hope and possibility for countless others. As time went on, she continued to build on the foundation of her experiences. She established programs to support children and families in need, created mentorship networks, and collaborated with other leaders to address social challenges. She understood that true change required consistent effort, empathy, and the willingness to face challenges head-on. Her work was tireless, but she approached it with joy, knowing that every effort contributed to a larger purpose. The father remained a quiet but steady presence, continuing to offer guidance, support, and encouragement. He witnessed the ripple effect of his initial act of kindness, not just in the waitress's life, but in the lives of everyone she touched. He realized that true legacy was not measured by wealth or possessions, but by the ability to recognize potential and nurture it, allowing others to rise to heights they might never have imagined. The son, growing older and wiser, continued to be inspired by his mother's journey. He understood that life's challenges were opportunities for growth, that kindness had power, and that resilience and courage were essential tools for success. The lessons he absorbed would guide him throughout his life, shaping him into a compassionate, capable, and insightful individual. Together, the three of them became a story of hope, transformation, and human potential. They demonstrated that a single act of kindness, combined with opportunity, resilience, and determination, could change lives in ways that were profound and far-reaching. Their journey served as a reminder that every person has the capacity to make a difference, to inspire change, and to leave a lasting legacy. In the end, the waitress's life had transformed completely from a young woman struggling to survive to a respected, influential, and compassionate leader. Her story was a testament to the power of empathy, courage, and perseverance, illustrating how small actions can ripple outward to create extraordinary change. She had not only transformed her own life, but it also touched countless others, leaving an enduring impact that would be remembered for years to come. And as she looked back on the journey from the cafe, to the challenges, to the recognition, and purpose she now embraced, she understood that the moment she had wiped a child's tears was not just an isolated act. It was the beginning of a life that would inspire hope, foster growth, and remind the world that one act of kindness, paired with opportunity, could change everything.